HIPAA checkout. Today we're going to be talking about that, and we're going to go into a lot of detail here with some examples of different forms of presenting the checkout and the steps that are going to occur after checkout, as well as the security and privacy rule and how those are incorporated into the checkout process. And then finally, we're going to take a look at some of the workflows that trigger from the checkout process. Let's dive in. Okay, so diving right in, we're going to take a look first at a relatively detailed example of a checkout process. Now, this particular checkout process varies based on the product. So this particular HIPAA e-commerce platform is also leveraging kind of questions and jurisdictional specific, or think like states or counties, rules that apply to the medicine or the lab test or et cetera, that we're going to allow someone to purchase. So the overall kind of takeaway here is that this can vary in the checkout process, and you'll see that depending on the product or products. And we're going to kind of take the user through a workflow. So here you can see the user sees they're at the order step, then they're going to go to eSignature and then confirmation. Now in the order step, you can see that in this particular case, the orderer is the doctor, and they're saying, I want to have this kit shipped directly to my patient or to my office. Now, then they're getting these prompts for the patient's information. And here the patient's information includes PHI data. So we'll go into more detail about the security and privacy aspects of this, but the fundamental kind of takeaway is there's PHI information in this checkout process. Now, in addition, we have a mailing address, and then we also have kind of some unique fields that are specific to this particular company and their delivery. So they're able to kind of select options, and then it kind of explains to the user what those options are going to kind of cause. So I will e-sign a prescription, I will provide my patient with a prescription, or I would like glucose to be included in the kit, for example. And then they can also apply a direct bill agreement. And so the main takeaway here from this page is that this whole process can be highly customized per end customer and per product type, and actually per user as well. So this is a doctor ordering on behalf of their patient. Okay, so then what you'll see is depending on the address information that they input, this is a jurisdiction specific workflow rule that we're firing off. So we're actually showing them that this particular item is unavailable to patients and providers in this state. So they're going to have to basically ship the sample to a different area in order for this to work, according to the to the message. And then similarly, they cannot ship to PO boxes, etc. Now, once it gets to the e-signature section, here you can see that we're showing the user this information. They've selected that they're going to have a direct bill. And so we're kind of adjusting the presentation of the e-signature form. And then here they're actually going to e-sign the form. And you can see that they have these specific items they need to complete. So we're showing them the items with a tooltip so that they can get more information to answer any questions that they have about what they need to complete. So, okay, and then again, at the bottom of the form, they have these codes, signature, and date information that they need to select. So then the user can add the codes. They can also complete the e-signature and then go through the process. And then once they're done, then they're going to see this confirmation screen. So one of the really important things about HIPAA is a lot of times the process can involve multiple steps, and there can be delays based on third-party labs possibly getting a signature or some form of legal requirement being met. And so you want to make sure that you're managing the expectations of your user as far as what the timeline is going to be for fulfillment and getting the items delivered to them. Ideally, you want to basically set their expectations relatively low compared to what you're actually going to be able to guarantee. Okay, so just moving on, we're going to take a look now at another example. And so this one is pretty simple. This particular order is just going to be a number of kits that a doctor is going to receive. And again, this is going to be a to my patient or to my office, but now they're selecting to my office. So you can see they don't have to provide as much information when it's going to their office. And we're also able to show kind of a message if they order too many, and then again, allow them to apply the direct billing. And finally, if they are going to be shipping it to their office, they can also select the ordering prescriber. And there's more detail there, but the summary is that they then get a much shorter process when they ship to their office. So, a very dynamic checkout process overall that they can complete. Now, this is looking at what the patient information is. And so let's kind of look at this checkout now as a different checkout within the same site, but we have a different user kind of going through this experience. So now we're kind of asking them to answer questions, and we're asking them to provide information that will help us verify that, yes, this is valid for us to complete this process. So then we're getting this PHI data again on this screen, and then we're asking them for consent. So they have to go through and sign off on all of these legal requirements and verify that they've read them. And then they can go in, and again, we're going to present different error messages if they're in a different location than what is allowed, and basically complete that checkout process. Now, this is another product, similar but different. And so ultimately, you can see kind of the differences in some of the questions that we can present based on this being a different product type. And then finally, once they get to the payment, it's a pretty standard payment process. We can also include a wallet and an address book to make it easier for the user. And you can also see there's a reference code. We can include a coupon code if you want to do something like that. And then finally, the user is going to see a confirmation. But note that there is a good expectation that we're setting here where we're saying your telehealth provider is going to review your symptoms, and they have to approve, and this can take up to 7 business days. So we're very directly managing the user's expectations so that they're not going to be disappointed that that telehealth provider took some amount of time in this process. So then we're saying upon approval, then we can ship this out. And then standard delivery is 4 to 8 days after your order is approved by your telehealth provider. So again, we're just managing those expectations very deliberately for the user. And again, this is just kind of showing different options for the end user to complete. Okay, so another example of a checkout process for HIPAA is just a really standard checkout. So here you can see this is offering the user the ability to choose a billing address and a shipping address from an address book, and they can estimate their shipping costs, and they get different options for shipping kind of speed and delivery times. They also have the ability to split out their shipments, so they can split their shipment and then re-estimate their shipping costs for different locations, etc. And then they also have the ability to use a wallet in order to make a payment. And they can also, you can see different options here if they've selected a free item or an invoiceable item, and then get a standard confirmation screen. So this is just kind of showing some of the presentation of a very standard checkout process that a user can go through. Now, this particular checkout is for a B2B type of experience. And you'll see here that basically this particular experience allows the billing address selection from an address book. And then they can also split out the items that are going to different locations. Here, we're actually showing a customization to the checkout for the form of delivery or the modality. And this is a refrigerated delivery, a standard delivery. We're showing the estimated times and what's being shipped in those different deliveries. We're also offering the user promos and the ability to kind of complete additional purchases so that they can get a discount. So this is more of a promotional type of interaction, and we're encouraging them to buy a certain volume. Again, they have access to their wallet, so they can use a credit card. They can pay an invoice, pay via basically purchase order. They can pay on account. They can pay using ACH. Really just depends on what you are looking to accept during that checkout process. Okay, and then the other thing we wanted to show here is that if they want, the user can go and use this quick edit form, which looks at their account and verifies that their account has access to the certain products that they're requesting. So they basically will be able to respect rules like their jurisdiction, what their particular location, their state, their county rules are for some of these different regulated medicines that they may be able to purchase or they may not. And we need to document and track all of that. Okay, and then this is another checkout process that's fairly standard. So here you can see the user has the ability to sign in at checkout if they haven't already created an account or logged in. Now, this is pretty cool because this means that the user is able to seamlessly go add items to their cart easily and then just go sign in when it's time for checkout. They can also inline create an account, which is pretty nice, and just go through that whole process. Once they've done that, they have the ability to use their address book to add their billing information. You'll see that that's very similar for shipping. But here for shipping, they have the option to do split shipping. So we're going to kind of dive into that briefly. So you can see basic shipping information to ship to one address, and then estimating the cost for the shipping, showing the different timelines for delivery, and then payment information. And there are a lot of forms of payment that we can use. So here you can see PayPal, e-check, invoice, or purchase order. These are all options. And if we're showing a guest checkout, we can allow the user to then create their account at the end of the payment process being completed, essentially, as a convenience to the user. Now, we also, as I mentioned earlier, have the ability to allow the user to ship to multiple locations. So if they do that, then they can select the locations here, and they can actually go in and split out. So here you can see they've selected a location, and they can also split out the individual items. So they have 3 going to one address and 4 of this item going to another. So they can have multiple kind of addresses that they're shipping to for a single item that has more than one quantity. And then we also have the shipping estimator. So we're going to bulk those items together. If there's just one product for quantity going to this address, this is the shipping cost. And then this is the shipping cost for all of these items. And then we also have the ability to split the payment as well. So we can change the payment method. We can change the payment card, etc. And so this can be split out. We can take multiple payments for a single purchase, for a single shipment, or we can take multiple payments, for the entire order. It really is up to you how you want to operate the business and what you want to offer. The main thing is, does the e-commerce platform have the capability? Yes, it does. And then fundamentally, once they've gone in and kind of selected these different payment methods, we want to allow them to verify that they selected properly. And then finally, this is just kind of presenting a way for the user to pay for everything at once. If they provide bad information, we're going to show them that. And this is just kind of a really nice way to, again, kind of present everything and allow them to verify that they entered it properly. So they can choose, again, credit card, PayPal, or ACH or e-check. And this is kind of what that looks like in that checkout process. Okay, and then once the user has completed their order, then they're going to get a confirmation screen, and they can send a copy of their receipt, and they can also receive notifications as the order progresses through the fulfillment process with tracking information, possibly updates on the timeline and where it is in the cycle of delivery. And so we hope that this video has been helpful going over some of the different formats of the way that you can present this checkout information for a HIPAA site. Now we're going to dive briefly into some of the security and privacy rule implications, and then talk about some of the workflows as well. Okay, so whenever a user completes their order, or even before the order is allowed to be completed, we can do some pretty interesting things. So one of the things that you saw earlier when we were presenting is we were looking at the different symptoms that a user was providing, and then showing them that they were going to have to sign off on a consent. And then finally, that in order for them to receive the items, in this example, a telehealth specialist had to sign off first. So this is pretty cool. What we're able to do from a workflow perspective is trigger a process that can notify the telehealth specialist in this case. It could be a pharmacy or a doctor. It could be a doctor ordering on behalf of a patient, and then a patient gets notified. Really, the list goes on as far as some of the workflows that can fire. We can have something go fire to a lab API, and make sure that someone's lab results are such that we can send them this item, or based on their answers to some of their survey questions, we can identify whether or not they're a good fit for this particular lab or not. I mean, the list goes on and on. And so fundamentally, we want you to understand that we can customize the workflows in the checkout process and highly cater them to your specific workflow requirements for your users. The name of the game is to make this a literally self-service process for your users as much as possible. And where this isn't possible, we want to make sure that we're managing the expectations of the user very clearly. Now, the other big thing is we are asking for PHI information. And so we want to make sure just to briefly talk about security and privacy rules and how we're adhering to these. Now, fundamentally, the bottom line is when you're getting PHI information and really just in general operating a HIPAA e-commerce, HIPAA portal, HIPAA device, etc., anything that has to do with HIPAA, you really want to respect and make sure that you're constantly proactively enforcing the security and the privacy rule in addition to the other aspects of HIPAA compliance. Now, we typically leverage third-party tools that we recommend, and we have guides and resources on that will conduct audits not just of your internal processes for your overall business, but also for your e-commerce, your public-facing applications, etc. This includes verifying the security and the privacy rule adherence, and even offers tools to allow for compliance or enforce compliance within your organization. So the bottom line is, in addition to the software itself, we also bring in third-party tools and integrate closely with those tools to monitor and provide you with training and support and resources via those third-party tools so that you can adhere to HIPAA should you make that investment. Now, additionally, the software itself, the e-commerce platform, the portal platform, it does have the ability to properly encrypt the data, leverage multi-factor authentication, logging, role-based access to information, and really just overall access for the user as to their information, being able to remove their information upon request, being able to download it and have an interface to be able to request downloading their information so they can transport it to another provider. All of these are things that you're going to want to be considering, and there are others as well. Ultimately, we encourage you to take advantage of working with an expert in this field so that you are complying with the security and the privacy rules in addition to the other aspects of HIPAA. And we offer a complimentary discovery, which I'll talk about briefly, that we really encourage you to go ahead and take advantage of if you're looking at a HIPAA solution where there is potentially PHI information. We certainly want to help guide you and provide you with resources in that process. Okay, so we hope that you've enjoyed the video that we just covered. And ultimately, one of the big takeaways that we want to encourage you to consider is that we do offer a complimentary discovery process and a lot of additional resources that are complementary related to this topic. One of the biggest things about the Clarity software and the overall Clarity process is we really like to build long-term relationships. In fact, we really see this as an opportunity to help even if there isn't a good fit for us to directly work together. We really care about this industry and what's going on in the space, and we encourage you to take advantage of our complimentary resources as well as our complimentary discovery and strategy sessions that we can offer. If we can help, we certainly encourage you to dig in with us and ask for support as you approach any of your upcoming projects. And with that said, if you would help us as well to get the word out about this valuable service and these valuable resources, we just ask that you hit the like button and subscribe if you're watching this online, and we will look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.